Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Living on Blockchain. Today, we are speaking to Nikita. Nikita is someone who has extensive, experience in the DeFi space. He's worked with the One Inch Network. He took up a leading position there as the CBDO. Post that, he has co-founded Barter DeFi. This is a solver network on top of Ethereum. This was a very, very interesting conversation. We talked a lot about how solver networks are the next big thing in terms of interoperability. We also talked about Solana and Ethereum. Very interesting conversation, a different conversation. These guys are really making waves in terms of what they are building. And I'm sure that everybody would find some insights here in this conversation. I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Let's deep dive right in. Hi, Nikita. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to us today. How are you doing?
Hello, Tarusha. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. And for our listeners, let's deep dive right into your background and how you got into Web3 initially.
Oh, that's a pretty good story, and I think I've never told it. But I was studying at Nottingham University, and we've had Italian professor, and it was 2013, and he introduced us to blockchain and Bitcoin, and we, spent a couple of. And I was studying, finance and economics, so we spent two seminars, looking at the blockchain, and we concluded that, um, Bitcoin will never be adopted by institutionals. It's mostly used for, scam transactions, and that, crypto in general is a very niche, tech. So for over 4 years, since that, time, I lived in a world, in a paradigm where blockchain was a good tech, but crypto and Bitcoin was something that no one should ever touch. And every time I would see on the news the announcement that there was a hack or someone lost money, like big amounts, like MTGOG hacks, Bitfinex hack, DAO. Yeah, I would think that people would stop using crypto. But in 2017, I started buying some coins, and then I got to work into crypto full time. And my last venue was at One Inch. I was, the third employee of One Inch in 2020, joined before DeFi summer and before DeFi became a hot topic. So yes, this is what my journey looks like so far.
Wow. So, you've had quite an arc from going from, like being
Yeah,
in love with the technology, but staying away from the crypto side of things, and now moving and deep diving into DeFi.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, can you tell us a little bit more, perhaps, about how what kind of prompted you to co-found Barter DeFi, and how has your journey been so far? I would love to understand the USPs there as well.
Absolutely. So, I feel like DeFi is still, the best market niche in crypto, and it just has an instant product market fit. In my personal opinion, I feel like we should have a different economic system in the world, and it should be transparent, built on top of smart contracts, and this is what DeFi kind of unlocks. And I like all the various niches within DeFi. I've been angel investing actively in this particular space into AMMs, RFQ systems, stable coins, infrastructure. Yeah, and in my personal opinion, like DeFi it hasn't happened yet. In 2020, it was just the beginning and the first wave, and it should receive a much bigger spotlight in crypto landscape in general. And yes, so I worked at One Inch. I was looking at various new ideas. I quit One Inch in July 2022 when I was moving to Chile with my family, and I've been actively looking like what are the next hottest topic in DeFi, and intents were one of those. So, I was looking for small teams or like really talented engineers with whom I met during hackathons, so during various, conferences and events. And we felt like Intense unlocks a lot of new opportunities for, just users and builders as well. And at that time, the only platforms that was sort of like hot and available to join was CowSwap. So we decided that maybe we should start a solver, and this is exactly what we did. And our solver became quite successful. We launched less than a year ago, and we already did over 4 billion volumes on Ethereum mainnet. So yeah.
Wow, that is those are wonderful stats. That's quite a lot of traction that you
Thank you.
guys have achieved since your inception. So if you had to perhaps explain to a layperson what the platform does, you call yourself solver built on top of
Right.
Ethereum. So how would you perhaps put it into 2-3 lines?
Okay, well, that's a hard question, but let me try to tackle it. So I feel like we are an invisible hand of the market. People interact with other platforms and other UI, whether they are for trading or cross-chain swaps or some kind of other operations, and they don't even know they are using our system. So yeah, we empower third-party dApps like CowSwap to find the most optimal route and for users, and people who want to trade use our off-chain computations for swapping. Yeah.
All right. So basically, you are like a layer that, or an intermediary layer that, users are utilizing without even perhaps realizing that, they're using your solution. They have you guys to thank for it.
Yes, it's a weird dynamic which everyone is kind of trying to solve, and I think solvers will get a lot more attention, a lot more spotlight,
Right.
due to various like innovation ideas. For example, for us, we did this research where we analyzed concept of coincidence of wants and how to use it between protocols. So, imagine like if I want to sell one ETH and maybe you want to buy one ETH, there is no way for our orders to be matched if we use any platform except CowSwap. Like, for example, you're using 1inch, I am using 0x or Uniswap X, and yeah, there is no way to connect our transactions. But if there is a solver present on both platforms, it can potentially match this order and save on gas and save on AMM fees and reach an equilibrium price that, for example, market makers cannot provide. This is what we are researching and what we are trying to do in DeFi.
So you're trying to solve for a different kind of interoperability challenge. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. We are trying to solve liquidity fragmentation. We are trying to improve MEV. It's actually like a lot of things that all of us are trying to solve and build. And yeah, no one has, I would say, succeeded so far in terms of, coherent and massive solution, but we are working hard to tackle all those problems.
Right. So can you give our listeners some historical context on how the concept of intents and solvers have evolved in the DeFi space?
Well, absolutely. So I think the best definition about intents was coined by Paradigm, but transactions refers to how actions should be performed, and intent refers to what the desired outcome is. And that's a huge difference because, transaction says like do A's and B, pay exactly C to get X back, and intent says I want X and I'm willing to pay like C. And solver systems, everyone looks at them as kind of like sophisticated parties, uh, yeah, to find optimal routing or optimal liquidity and to, avoid potential problems that are quite common in DeFi space, like front running and MEV, issues. So yeah, we are, trying to find the best price for user across all publicly and non-publicly available liquidity sources from different smart contracts and different protocols, and yeah, to provide the user the outcomes that they want. So it's a new idea. It kind of started a few years ago, and a lot of people, especially from TradeFi, they're saying that intents is a more sophisticated like DeFi way of saying limit orders, and technically they are correct. So intents can be looked at as fancy limit orders.
Right. Can you give us a bit of an overview on the process of matching intents with solvers? Because, like you mentioned, this is something that is very recent, as a phenomena in the space. And this seems like a very big problem to solve, like pretty much like how big in general, when people say interoperability is a challenge, obviously this is a subset of that, and that is a huge problem, right? So how do you even go
Right.
about starting, of thinking to solve such a problem? Because there are such big ecosystems, right? And how do you get them to talk to each other and make sure that the user is getting what he, wants?
Right. Well, solvers. So I think connecting those platforms and analyzing liquidity in real time requires, some kind of like optimization,
Right.
skills and deep math understanding. And there are actually very few people with experience like that. So, for example, Barter team is very lucky because one of my co-founders, Seva, he used to work in logistics, and for 7 years he was building software for companies like Philip Morris, for example, or IKEA, to help them ship goods between different countries. And it's kind of the same with like routing pools and connecting transactions. The real challenge is to do it in a decentralized fashion. So all the solar systems right now, at least like I would say 90% of them, sort of centralized, running on their own
Right.
servers and not,
Yeah.
doing it in the open. And this is
Yeah.
what we are trying to crack. Yeah.
Wow. This is wonderful. And the more I'm listening to you and your solution, about your solution, this seems so relevant, and the potential to scale is massive, right, in the space.
We sure hope so. There are more and more use cases and more
Right.
platforms that are being available for systems like ours. Like imagine, let's dive. It's actually very interesting, and I haven't seen anyone covered it. But imagine 2 years ago there was just one platform, CowSwap, that allowed
Hmm.
third-party solvers to participate, and
Right.
the only three solvers that existed were built by Gnosis team. So and based on aggregators API like 1inch, 0x, and Paraswap, and
Hmm.
now we have over 20 different full-time teams working to improve solver systems and trying to capture the market, and some existing projects with different narratives, like for example Enzo Finance are kind of pivoting from other things they did in DeFi, and more platform open up the doors for solvers. Like for example Uniswap X, I think, was a big unlock and a big shift in a way that how people looked at intents, because when Uniswap allowed third parties to solve order flows that they have, it kind of unlocked a lot of improvement, especially for users, because with a more competitive solver landscape, users get the best rates because everyone's kind of fighting for it.
Yes. Right. This is an ever, changing landscape, right? Like what you've mentioned, that the scope is absolutely huge, and there are, earlier there were fewer
Yes.
platforms that were trying to solve for it, and now obviously that does change. But when the space is so dynamic, and I think this goes for almost every other builder in Web3, because Web3 as a whole is very dynamic, but especially for the problem you're solving, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Like how do you create a platform which is, as you mentioned, the traction that you've received is commendable. How do you stay ahead of the curve, and how do you make sure that you are able to keep the platform as dynamic as the space without compromising on the security, being perhaps one of the bigger challenges?
Yes, well, I think a lot of it has to do with, personal relationship and
Hmm.
technological research, because we are trying like a lot of new concepts that were not widely like tried by other teams for like swaps and trading and interoperability. Yeah, we have interesting approach to multi-chain and cross-chain, and we do some experiments. So I think this is very important to have some research bandwidth for any project in order to figure out what the end game of the niche you're working on looks like. And another one is personal relationships. So I joined 1inch team, and I was, the third employee after the co-founders for like a couple of months. We just worked, three of us. So I think personal relationship, when you engage with projects and talk with them and ask how you can help and solve their needs, and building those relationships, this is very important for crypto. And with my experience, it's kind of I knew a lot of different parties. So when we were chatting with them, we kind of they provided the pain points, and we discussed like what can be done on our end, if we can potentially tap into new liquidity on smart contracts and different protocols for solving. And and for example, engage with new dexes or new AMMs that are not yet released in public, for example, and just been like testing those new ideas and new concepts. This is what helps us stay slightly ahead of the curve. So yeah, technological research and personal relationship.
Right. I think that's brilliantly put. I do think that, research and personal relationships, like you mentioned, they do pave the path for your product to a large degree in Web3 because of its dynamic nature. So that's very well said, and I think I completely concur with you on that. I would love to know a little more about the next big milestone that you guys are looking at in your journey.
Right. So in January, we published this research, and our research went pretty viral on Twitter. At that time, we had only 100 followers, and it received over like 30,000 views and various reposts. And the idea is very simple. Like, how do we combine orders that originate on various different routers, like 1inch, Uniswap, 0x, MetaMask swaps, Cow swap, and how do we bundle them together and match them instead of matching them against AMM liquidity, match them against each other. And we realized that within 20 blocks of 5 minutes, it's possible to match quite a lot of transactions and save users up to $20,000. Imagine, like every 5 minutes, it's possible to save this amount of money in DeFi on existing order flow. So like pretty much the infrastructure and the activity is already there. Someone just needs to connect all the dots. And so we wrote this research, and at that time, we were only solving on the cow swap. Now we are expanding into more platforms, and also, kind of trying to build, new UIs that would connect to our API and our intent engine. And if we can improve pricing for users with this unlock, I think that would be huge. And we hope to do it by have some kind of prototype by the end of summer. And then, we will try to decentralize. So this is our, current roadmap and milestones that we want to achieve.
That's brilliant. I think, like you said, it's going to be a very, very powerful, feature, and it'll be a very powerful launch, especially, and be very popular among users. So I'm looking forward to that for one. Now, let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk a little about the regulation aspect. So there is an upcoming EU regulation which is expected to take, I think, effect by the end of this year, which would have some sort of an impact on the DeFi space. What is your take on that, and how big of an impact do you think these regulations will have on the DeFi space as a whole?
Right. So, I feel like regulation is, of course, inevitable, and it will touch, every company that is somehow interacting with DeFi. No one really knows yet whether it's going to be like harsh or whether it's going to be, relatively good. for I mean, it has to be good for the industry in the long run, but some aspects are still needed to be cleared by SEC and other similar, venues. But we feel like regulation is a tricky topic. We want to have some rules and guidelines that would show us what can be done and how it should be done. And it feels like so far no one has kind of like solved it. We will see how like what changes, but by the end of this year, everyone is hoping that the lawsuit, or what is the correct way of saying, of what is going on between Uniswap team and SEC will be resolved peacefully and would not have like a big major impact. Yeah, maybe QIC or stricter AML policies will be implemented. Maybe we will have to, exclude some liquidity or smart contracts because some money inside of them are tainted. And so yeah, like it's a pretty big issue. We are actively paying attention to it. I think everyone is trying to be as transparent as possible, in order to provide all information and the way they operate on chain right now. And yeah, we are one of those parties, but the best we can do is simply wait.
Yeah, I think wait and watch is the best way to go. And obviously, the more serious players would want to err on the side of caution and comply. Some regulation might be a good thing, but don't you feel that regulation kind of goes against the very ethos of decentralization?
No, I agree. I agree that regulation, is not a friend of DeFi and crypto in general. However, we have to kind of accept and be a realist, and with that we live in, this huge modern world, and it has rules, and those rules are actually built to protect, people, just like us. And yeah, we have to play by the rules and maybe modify them based on unique circumstances of our industry and unique aspects, and hopefully regulators are aware of those circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll leave it at that. So now, I would love to get your thoughts because on different ecosystems altogether, like Solana and Ethereum, there are
Yep.
people who are on both sides and there are supporters on both sides. There's been much discussion about perhaps Solana potentially dethroning Ethereum in the long run. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think is behind Solana's rise, and what challenges do you foresee in their journey?
Well, I feel like a lot of Solana's rise is actually around speculative activity, and that's not
Right. I
necessarily a
completely
bad.
agree.
It's
Yeah.
And it's yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing because Ethereum with ICO boom and what happened in like 2017 when the new tokens popped up and everyone was like fundraising kind of had a
Mm,
similar period. There are like
yeah.
a lot of similarities. I feel that Solana has a great team and definitely great technology. That's been proven by many to be like extremely competitive and extremely efficient. And yeah, for them, I think the challenge is, evolving this speculative, trading activity and speculative aspects of, new coins and everything what's going on the blockchain and turn it into a long-term sustainable businesses, sustainable DAOs, sustainable protocols. And yeah, I hope to see a lot more, unique niches and use cases for built specifically for Solana, which haven't happened yet. If
Yeah.
you look at L1 landscape, a lot of projects are very similar. Every chain has their own AMM, just like Uniswap. Every chain has their own, Oracle system and stuff like that. So hopefully Solana will, it already kind of started to happen